So the first thing I want to address before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, is that I've mentioned this before, but let's get to the point about they are not illegal. Why is this never called out? Because as a result of things like the right-wing British press, from the Daily Express to the Daily Telegraph to the Daily Mail, they want you to believe that the Rwanda deal is absolutely in our country's best interests. And in order to do that, they want you to make you believe that there is absolutely no distinction between people who are here completely by the books, people who are here absolutely to work, and people here to actually, well, it may not even be to work, but people who are here absolutely legitimately. All their papers and all of their bookkeeping is absolutely in order. And they want you to believe that there's no distinction between them and those who have got here illegally. That's the only thing you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. There, I've just summarized it right there. And as far as this video is going to be concerned, I think it's the sort of thing that makes you think that, well, they want you to think even more. And it's the sad thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is that I used to think that the idea that the British press want you to think that there was no distinction, that this was just a figment of their imagination, as though people were going to like take this at face value. But now it seems as if like people do legitimately think that this is the case. And what we're about to probably see isn't going to be very nice. But I do this because I wanted to prove a very excellent point about the idea about the way that you want to know how far down the road we've got as far as Britain is becoming right-wing is concerned. Never mind the fact that we've had 14 years of this government involved and things have only gone worse and worse and worse. But it's the fact that it's now even trickling down into the thoughts of normal working people, that they see that they even they are beginning to almost be on the side of maybe they are the real issue. Maybe if we abolish migration forever from this country, we'll abolish poverty. But all of this talk is going to lead and has led to surprisingly very small results. And let's show this, ladies and gentlemen, because apparently the video is called "Angry Audience Member on BBC's Question Time Rails Against Immigration and Human Rights." And it's done by Maximilian Robespierre. And, well, let's get into it properly. And we'll see whether or not they mean immigration by means of legal or illegal, but we'll wait and see, because, well, human rights is going to be a very... Wait until you see what I've got, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, you know what? Just to demonstrate to you guys exactly the sort of thing because I come prepared for this sort of thing, and, well, outside of like books on philosophy and sociology that I've got hidden around, I also have this small little number. It's just the very short introduction series on human rights. So don't think I haven't come prepared for this, because I don't claim to be like a rocket scientist or somebody who understands the laws on things, cover to cover. But I do know when things make sense and when things don't make sense. And I was very, very... The first day I heard about this idea of wanting to ship off migrants to Rwanda, I was like, no, that is the worst thing they could possibly have suggested, and it's something that simply wasn't going to work. Because at the very bottom of it, ignoring the economic side of it and how exactly we could afford to do such a move like that, there is also, ladies and gentlemen, a nasty out of sight, out of mind attitude to all of this, which it's the sort of thing that would appeal to very far right people. And, well, the irony is that they think it's going to appeal to the far right, but they couldn't be any more wrong. So here we go.
Hi guys, so Question Time was in Middlesbrough, and either a Tory fan or a...
Well, okay, Middlesbrough, that might give us a bit of context, because for whatever reason, I don't know if it was specifically like Weir side or T sides that was the one who decided to swap allegiances and actually vote Conservative. But I've known some people who like live down in, because again, I live in Newcastle, which is only about like less than 100 miles north of Middlesbrough. But Middlesbrough like doesn't exactly get the best reputation because of certain decisions that the people make. But there are great and good things about Middlesbrough. But well, let's hear this out. I'll just say that much.
Form UK fan was pretty much allowed.
Yeah, like I said again, now's not the time to be to have a generalizing sweep about such things. That's not the right attitude for this.
To make a rambling, ignorant comment about asylum seekers. What this man had to say was terrible, yet not surprising considering what he's been fed by the likes of Nigel Farage around the Brexit argument and the Tories when Priti Patel and Suella Braverman were at the Home Office. Should we be angry with him or the people who have poisoned his mind?
But there's a lot of them that are legally coming over, the drug dealers, the criminals from other countries, and to say to let them all in and help them humanely, you can't. You can't.
That's right.
You've got to cut this off from the core. We're sending loads of money over to France, and it's doing nothing. They're letting them get on the boat and get across. They're actually not stopping anything. And it's sickening to me. This Rwanda plan, for me, is a brilliant idea by the Conservative Party. And it's being stopped by, for me, idiots that are just thinking of human rights and saying that this and that. But these people have no right to stay. They've come here illegally. Come here legally, fine. Brilliant. We'll have your old...
Okay, so this man's argument is that drug dealers and murderers and criminals, if they are here legally, then that's fair enough. If they're here illegally, then boo, send them back. Is that what the point of this? So it means that you could be here legally. You could be a sodomite. You could be a murderer. You could be somebody instigating, chemical attacks in this country. Just as long as you have a visa and you're here completely fine of your own will, then that's fair enough. If you're not here legally, then literally off it. You know what I mean? Is that what he's trying? Is that what he's trying to get across? Because there's something not quite right with that logic. Maybe it's because it's illogical. That's probably why. Other things as well is that, you know what? First, again, you hear as well, we send loads of money over to France, but who's sending the money over to France then? You know what? You can't blame again. What does this man know about the way that the French handle things? Do you think that they've got it any easier and stuff like that? France is a much larger country than the UK, and I don't exactly know what this man knows about people who travel hundreds of miles across Europe just to try and find salvation and try and find a better life. Let's keep going, because this strikes me as the sort of person who, I know they said about Middlesbrough, but has this guy actually ever been outside Middlesbrough before? Has he actually ever seen like the rest of the UK? Has he actually went any further south than, let's say, than the Midlands? Or even as far south as Kingston upon Hull?
All over here, get jobs with you, work, pay your taxes, do everything else. A lot of these illegal immigrants that are coming over are criminals, the drug dealers, rapists, murderers. They're getting away with a lot of it.
I mean, I just point out that, for example, 2 years ago, applicants from Yemen, Libya, and Syria, for example, 99% of them were granted asylum. Just to provide a bit of context there.
That's the context. That's all you could push back on. Okay. So once again, should we be angry with him or the people who have poisoned his mind, like Nigel Farage and the Conservative Party? So he said a few things here.
Well, personally, for my opinion, I think it's both of them. One, it's for this man to have believed what they were being told, and it's the people who are pushing the agenda. Now, understand, ladies and gentlemen, I and you watching this right now, you are completely within your rights to believe in exactly what you want to believe, and nobody should have the authority to make you believe, and nobody should have the authority to force you to believe or to make you feel a certain way. It's entirely of your own volition, and you have that right. You have the right to think as you want to think. What people do not have the authority, however, to do, and this is something that I will absolutely stand up in court and probably even shout this from the rooftops if I had to, is that just because you can does not mean you should. There, sometimes in life, ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as good or bad. There are only consequences for your actions. And whether you want to say your consequences are good or bad, or whether your intentions were good or bad, or whether or not the backlash or the admiration you receive afterwards is good or bad, it's the sort of thing that'll remain to be seen. Because, for example, a lot of people really did not like it. Mostly Brexit and far-right supporters didn't like the fact that I was calling out GB News, calling out Farage, calling out Lee Anderson for the things that they did. Those sorts of people are not very happy with me and my opinions, but sod it, fuck it, who cares? I'm entitled to my opinion and I shall stick to it. So I can't necessarily be too angry with him for if they really are his opinions, but that's the sort of thing we need to it's a bit harder to determine if this is what he genuinely believes, or if he thinks that just because he's been told it, that must make it right. If Nigel Farage turned around one day and said that everybody will live a longer and happier life if we all jumped off a cliff, are we going to do it? Well, obviously not. So do you believe everything you hear, or are there only certain parts you choose to listen to? That's another can of worms right there. So let's keep going.
So where did he get the idea that they're coming over illegally? Is it the Conservative Party who have been pushing this idea, well, these people are coming over illegally? They haven't defined what illegal is, because, and I have raised the question before, if these people are arriving illegally, then they're breaking the law. So why aren't they being arrested? If somebody's doing something illegally by definition is against the law, so why aren't they being arrested? Of course they're not being arrested because they haven't done anything illegal.
Yes, exactly. And again, just to go one further, is that they're acting as though people in this country don't do illegal things either. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there's also a big difference between people who are doing things illegally, but also people who are doing things unlawfully, but are not actually breaking any laws. Stands to reason, ladies and gentlemen, or things that may not be viewed as particularly very popular to the populace, but, well, what do you say to that then? If they're not doing anything wrong, then what's the issue? Why is it just because they're not English? Is that what the logic is with this man? Is that he's only angry because he did not have the certified knowledge to do things that other people did? He thinks that for some reason nationality is what's holding him back. It didn't hold it back. Well, let's take, for example, Peter Sutcliffe. Do you think that Peter Sutcliffe would rally in rage and, let's say he would do all these sorts of things if he wasn't English? I don't really think nationality was Peter Sutcliffe's underlying motivation to do the things that he did.
Because it's not illegal to arrive in the UK and claim asylum. This question never gets answered. Why are these people not being arrested if they're doing something illegal? I would love for a journalist to ask a Tory MP or the Prime Minister or a government minister, why aren't people being arrested if they're arriving in the country illegally? You understand what illegal means. They won't answer that question. Unfortunately, that question never gets asked.
You're not wrong about that. In fact, I'm almost in mind to write to the Prime Minister for the second time, literally just to ask this question. Because I actually do want a response. Everybody wants a response out of these sorts of things. But I want to know, well, if you push the question, then and before people say, it's a situation that the Prime Minister simply cannot win, because if he does reply and tries to give an answer to it or try to rationalize about why they're not doing anything, it's only proving the fact that they're here completely legally, and therefore all those right-wing supporters have no leg to stand on when it comes to migration. That doesn't mean to say they can't account for everybody, ladies and gentlemen, but for the people they can account on, the people who are here completely legally, then what do you suggest to them? And how do you rally check about whether anyone is actually going to commit somebody horrible in the future? It's something you have no preparation or way to stop or check or keep in line, so to speak. Then, of course, if he doesn't write back, then, well, again, he's got no answer because he knows fine well he can't answer it. But that's entirely his. But again, it's the responsibility and the accountability of somebody who is the Prime Minister, somebody who is in charge. Which begs the question why I'm not allowed to write to the Home Office, but whatever.
Now, he went on to say that to let them all in, this is another sort of argument that's presented by the likes of Farage and others. It's an extension of the so-called open borders. Oh, well, you just want to let them all in. Nobody wants to let all of anyone in. No, there is no political party that I know of that wants open borders, that doesn't want any sort of control. And if you're concerned about open borders, well, you should be concerned about what the Tories are doing when it comes to goods coming in. They've been allowing all sorts of goods to come into the UK post-Brexit, and there's a risk to public health. But nobody seems to care about that open border. Now, it's eventually going to be closed or sealed in some way or controlled, but how many years have passed that border has been open? But it seems some people don't seem to care about that. He was also angry with the French, of course. We're giving all this money to the French and they're not stopping the boats. But I've said before, the French can only stop a certain number, but also what's the point in stopping people who don't want to stay in France? They want to arrive in the United Kingdom. The vast majority of asylum seekers in France stay in France. It's a very small percentage who...
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Or you may be arguing as well is that, well, why don't they just move down south and why don't they go to Spain or Portugal? Yeah, well, then again, getting across France is going to be would be a pretty difficult business in itself. Or why they don't just, go the Upton Sinclair route and travel to America. Because, well, a thing called, the Atlantic Ocean, the price of actually affording a ticket for the plane, and what exactly are they going to do when they get there, if they're even allowed in.
Who want to go further to the United Kingdom. And I keep saying, what's the point in holding these people back in France, where they live in tents and squalor conditions? Why won't you let them go to the UK? That's where they eventually want to be. He also doesn't seem to like human rights. He talked about, we have all these, do-gooders and their human rights. Why? This is another argument that's been presented by the Conservatives in particular, getting rid of the European Convention on Human Rights. We need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights to stop the asylum seekers, to stop the boats. It's about taking rights away from British people. And unfortunately, this guy probably doesn't understand that. And then finally...
Actually, for what they're worth, I'll read out a small article about this. So, I'll just to something that might actually be a bit of a useful insight for those who are interested about human rights. Something that the Conservatives want you to not be interested in, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, is that the Conservatives want you to make you think that you have no core values, that there is nothing of value at anybody's core. So why even bother having the Convention of Human Rights at all? So, and I could have just summarized it there, but here's just a little bit more of something else. These days, it is usually not long before a problem is expressed as a human rights issue. This book long looks at where the concept of human rights came from and how the human rights movement has developed a set of obligations that apply worldwide. We will consider the trajectory of the idea of human rights and the role that human rights play and might come to play in our world. Different people currently see human rights in different ways. For some, invoking human rights is a heartfelt, morally justified demand to recite fully all sorts of injustice. For others, it is no more than a slogan to be treated with suspicion or even hostility. Lawyers sometimes consider that human rights represent almost a term of art, representing only those claims they have been or can be upheld as legal rights by a national or international court. Yet the application of human rights law in a court is almost always contested, with both parties to dispute demanding that human rights law be applied in their favour. Human rights laws is as special and popular as it often suggests that other law is inadequate or applied in an unfair way. The language of human rights is deployed to criticize, defend, and reform all sorts of behavior. Human rights have a pedigree of a distinguished struggle against oppression and the promise of a fairer future. Playing the human rights card can be persuasive, sometimes even conclusive. In contemporary decision-making, this is one aspect of what the moral force of human rights so attractive. Human rights help you win arguments, and sometimes to change the way things are done. The concept of a human rights culture also means different things to different people. To some, it means ensuring that everyone is treated with respect for their inherent dignity and human worth. To others, it means that judges, the police, and immigration officials are required to protect the interests of terrorists, criminals, and migrants at the expense of the security of the population. This tension has come to a head in some countries, including the United Kingdom, with popular newspapers ridiculing the application of human rights legislation and campaigning against the role of foreign judges. At times, human rights protections may indeed seem to be anti-majoritarian. Why should judges or international bodies determine what is best for any society, especially when democratically elected representatives have chosen a particular path? But the point is that human rights may serve to protect people from the tyranny of the majority. So that's just a very short opening, ladies and gentlemen, is that, well, the majority of the tyranny. Who does that remind you of?
We have the old legal versus illegal. He doesn't seem to understand the difference here. Illegal migration, even if it were a term which isn't really used, would be referring to people who have arrived in the UK with a visa and have overstayed their visa. We're not talking about asylum seekers here. So, once again, has this guy's mind been poisoned, or was he just always like this? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and once again, it once again leaves me with not a great deal else to add, apart from the the things I've mentioned already. Is the argument that what is this guy's information based on? What references does he have to figures, or is this something he's seen with his own eyes? He hasn't made any mention that there's been problems happening in his own neighborhood about people who are not here legally, as he puts it. And it stands to reason as well as that. But because, again, one litigation that maybe quite a lot of people from the north of England do have is that because we live basically on the other side of the country, we don't necessarily have the same... maybe the same sort of, it's not really problem, but the same outlook towards migrants that people in the south do. Maybe it's because obviously they would drive through from Calais and then they would come over to Dover through Tilbury and all the rest of it. And maybe the reality of living down there may be, well, is the fact that some people may push the agenda that their country is being invaded when, well, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if they're coming here legally, then it's not really an invasion at all, is it? I don't exactly... And besides, if it was an invasion, it would be of a guerrilla force militia, if anything else, but it's not even that. It doesn't even come close to that. And, well, as I mentioned before, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you bring up the issue of human rights, or when people do and they'd want to see it abolished, that would include his rights as well, ladies and gentlemen. And what about other people, ladies and gentlemen? Do they have rights? Like people like me, people like you? Do we have rights, even when we disagree with each other? Of course we do. And this guy wants to have them removed because, like I said before, the Conservatives, the Brexit Party, the Reform Party, UKIP, deep down, they want you to believe that people should not have any core values. So that's why they're very keen for people to to abolish the idea of the Convention of Human Rights, because they don't think it's of any value apart from how we tell you to do it. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the majority of the tyrannical, of those in charge, those who actually have the authority and the power. What power do people who live in poverty, live in squalor, hoping just to come over to this country to have a slightly better life, not only for their sake, but for the sake of their children and those of their kind who would come afterwards? Don't they deserve a fairer chance? maybe if we lived their life, ladies and gentlemen, we would see it very, very differently indeed. So bear this in mind, and I will see all of you guys again next time. Take care, and bye-bye for now.